I'm Dana K. White. I am the author of Decluttering at the Speed of Life, and I'm the creator of the No Mess decluttering process. Today, I am going to share my top 3 tips for helping other people declutter, specifically using the No Mess decluttering process, okay? Now, this video is intended for the in your life helping situation, okay? So I actually train and certify decluttering coaches in my method. They are in a situation where someone has hired them to come in and help them. That is likely not your situation right now. It might be your grandma or your child or your spouse or your sister or someone who either because they've asked you or because you just have to, you're in there leading them through the decluttering process. So that's the angle that we're coming from today. So Decluttering at the Speed of Life has chapters in it where I talk through leading different people in your life through the No Mess decluttering process. But I'm just going to give you my best 3 things to think about beforehand, okay? Number 1, declutter your own stuff first, right? I know, it's painful. It's painful. Nobody wants to declutter. That's kind of the point here, right? But number 1, it's going to give you experience. If you have heard about the No Mess decluttering process, you don't personally have any problems with clutter, but you think, oh, maybe that would actually work for the person that I need to help. Try it in your own space first. Whatever is the messiest or most cluttered space that you do have or whatever, go through the process so that you can experience it and go, oh, that's why it's so helpful to start with trash to build momentum and oh, that's why it's so important to take it there now. Now I get it. So many times people are like, oh, well, that wouldn't work because blah, blah, and then they try it and they go, oh, actually, that totally works. Like I hear that all the time, right? So give yourself that experience so that you know how the process works. And second, and this is really big, is credibility. So because we're specifically talking today about people in your real life who you might be helping declutter, if those people know you and you have any of your own clutter, then in those moments where they become overwhelmed or maybe they feel judged, which the process works exceptionally well because it removes judgment from the process, okay? But just let's say that you get into a situation where they are being resistant and they don't want to take your help. It's very hard to be told to declutter by someone who has their own clutter. I am not saying you have to have your stuff completely done before you can help anybody else. I'm definitely not saying that. But go ahead and declutter your own things, specifically your most visible stuff. That's one of my rules. I follow the visibility rule to build decluttering momentum over time, okay? Because when you see the progress, when the progress is visible, then it's inspiring to you to keep on decluttering. Well, it's not just inspiring to you, it's also inspiring to the other people who live in the house. Even if they don't go, oh, I'm inspired, right? Like it is something that has an impact on them. Or if it's your grandma, get rid of stuff in your own house so that they see, oh, wow, this is looking different. It's feeling different in here. And that starts to build that credibility, specifically the people who live in your house. As they get to move around more easily, find things more easily, get to access spaces like, oh, we don't have to move things off the kitchen counters now because we can actually just go in and cook, and life becomes easier and they experience what it's like to live in a decluttered home, even if it's not perfect yet, but you've worked on visible spaces. That is going to build your credibility so much. Focusing on getting someone else to declutter when you have your own big out there messes that you're ignoring because you're like, well, I'll get to that later. Let's focus on your stuff. That's a natural tendency, but it's the thing that backfires, right? So really focus on your own stuff first. My number 2 tip, guide them through making decluttering decisions instead of making decluttering decisions for them, all right? That's what the No Mess decluttering process is. That's why it works so well when you're helping someone else declutter, because you guide them through making decisions by asking, Do you see any trash here? The first step is trash. I always recommend that you print out the steps. We actually have a refreshed version of that. If you want to go to aslobcomesclean.com/5, F-I-V-E, you can get that. But if you have it actually printed out and you say, this is the first step that lady on the internet said, right, is look for trash. Go ahead and throw it away any trash. Do you see any trash? It is hard. It is so hard to not point out trash. That's trash. That's trash. That's trash. Why? And yet, it ends up backfiring in the real decluttering process. So ask them to look for trash. Hey, do you see any trash? Let's go ahead and throw that away. I'll pick it up for you, whatever. You might have to do the physical work of it, but just point out trash and I'll get that thrown away. Let them be the one to answer that question. Guide them through this process instead of you answering the questions for them. I know it can be really, really hard. Resist the urge, because as you go through the process, you're gonna deal with every last thing, and trash that's obvious to you but not to them will become obvious to them at some point in the process, right? But the trust that you're gonna build with them as you build momentum, that trust and that momentum are going to take you so far in this process, where if you get into an argument in literally the first 3 minutes of working together over whether the Ziploc bag is trash or it could be rinsed out and reused at another time, if you get into an argument over that, you are halting the process. So in the same way that I tell you when you're personally going through the No Mess Decluttering process to skip an item if it makes you go, huh, do that same thing here. Okay, let them be the one who's making these decisions. And then as you get to the 2 decluttering questions, it can be really hard, right? Like, this is that nuanced difference that makes all the impact, that is the game changer for this process. Is the question is, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? You're asking them, if you needed this item, where would you look for it first? Do not get into where should it go, because in where should it go, then first of all, that doesn't work for any of my people, right? Because we spin out on all the places. Oh, I shouldn't. Where did my grandma keep hers? We don't care about that, right? But it also is very easy for you to be the one determining where should it go. Now, this is hard because if somebody has asked you to come in and help them, they may be like, you know what? You're the expert. I'm just going to do what you say. But if you put things in the place where you believe it should go, but they would never look for it there, then when you leave, they're not going to be able to find anything. And if they can't find anything, then you have not actually helped them. This is the horror story that I hear from so many people who tell me that someone came in and helped me, put all these things in random places, random to them. I'm sure it made sense to the person helping, but I didn't know where anything was. And then I never wanted anybody to come in and help me again. Like, it was just a disaster. So you've got to stick with that. Where would you look for this first? It's also a trust building thing. If you are actually asking them the question and you see that they're going, well, it should, no, it doesn't matter where it should go. Where would you actually look for it first? And then take it there now. You're building that trust for them to realize, oh, okay, they're not fighting me. They're not telling me I'm bad and wrong. They are instead helping me. And then you go through the process. Obviously, this is not a video where I'm going to teach every last thing about the process, but you go ahead and you take it there now and you face the reality of that space with them to say, oh, you know what? Actually, you've already got 16 of these. So this one, right? Like, we have 16 and there's not room for a 17th one. So this one doesn't have any room there. Or, oh, you said you would look for it here first, but this place is it's packed full. There's no room for it. What are you willing to get rid of in order to make space for this? So going through that same thing that I teach all the time as part of this process, but leading them through it. So they're deciding the thing that can go. And then that will help build their confidence. It'll help build momentum, and it will build that trust as you continue to help them. And since we talked about the first decluttering question, let's talk real quick about the second one too. The first question is, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? If you're helping someone, it's if you needed this item, where would you look for it first? Guide them through giving you an honest, instinct-based answer as opposed to a thinking of the best place, right? If they don't have an answer to that, then go to the second question. If you needed this item, would it occur to you that you already had one? Okay. The idea with that question is I didn't have a place where I would look for it, which means I would never go looking for it. I would just go buy another one, and I need to be getting stuff out of my house. And so then we put it in the donate box. But if they say, oh, no, I would absolutely know I had it. Okay, well then lead them back to the first question. Okay, great. Like, you take their word for it. Great. So you say you know you have it. That means there has to be a place where you would look for it first. Even if you had no confidence it was going to be there, where would you go looking for it? Okay, so you lead them back to that. That's the beauty of helping them through this process. It's the beauty of having someone help you through this process. Y'all have seen it in my 1 Hour Better videos that I do with people, but it's guiding them to stay on track. Okay, and so they then have to have that answer. Got it? All right, and then my third top tip for helping others declutter: have a no homework policy. This one's hard, especially when you are helping someone declutter and you think, I've got limited time. I can only be here for 3 hours, and boy, they've got 7 days worth of clutter that they need to be dealing with. It is so tempting to set stuff to the side and say, okay, all right, let's go through. Okay, I'm going to put these over here for you to decide later. I'm going to stick these in a box for you to go through while you're watching TV. That is so tempting because it feels like you're being more efficient and making better use of the time that you're there. I completely understand the desire to want to do that, but I urge you to implement a no homework policy. Follow the no mess process. The no mess process is designed to make progress, and only progress, real sustainable progress, in any amount of time that you have available. And without fail, when I lead people through this process, they are shocked at how much they're able to get done in the amount of time that we spend. And when I say they're shocked, I mean they're like, I can't believe how much we did, and also that there's not a bunch of piles laying around. Okay? So teaching them this process, going through this process with them, it is so key that you don't leave stuff for them to do later. And it feels like you're taking longer than you need to take because you're like, oh, are we really going to take it there now? But so many times the process of taking it there now, going up the stairs, going down the stairs, going whatever, will be the thing that triggers, you know what, actually, I don't need that thing. That thing actually is obvious. It can just go straight in the donate box because I don't want to go up the stairs for this. But saying, oh yeah, no, I'm going to put that up in my sewing room. Yeah, for sure. And so you set it aside. Well, then you leave their house, and all of this help that you did, they look around, they're like, well, my house looked better before she came because at least it was all shoved in this closet, and now it's in all these little piles that I have to deal with later. I hear all the time from people who are like, literally just the other day, heard from someone who said, I just found a box in my garage it was over 10 years ago, that a professional organizer had packed up and said, oh, go through these after I'm gone. It doesn't work, okay? Here's what you can do instead. I'm not saying that they're not going to continue working after you go. Use the no mess process. This is why it's so important for you to fully understand the no mess process. Use the no mess process. Show them the power of work that you do that you can step away from at any time, which removes the overwhelm, which means they can go back to it at any time. Teach them the process. Teach them how this works by actually doing it with them in their home. And then when you're done, when you stop for the day, whether you're finished with the space or not, when you stop for that day, then just say, you can keep going. We've just spent a lot of time asking ourselves, if I needed this item, where would I look for it first? That's the same thing you're going to do with the rest of these items. So keep going on this. It doesn't mean you can't say, oh my goodness, they have, an entire box full of paper. I guess we have to stop and do that. we're going to stick with the most visible progress first, right? So you may say, I'm going to teach you the process on the other stuff in this space so that when I'm gone, you can work on that. But I haven't put papers in a box for them for later, right? So I make real, actual progress that they can visibly see, and that if they decide because they want to or because they're just done for the day, if they decide that after I leave they don't want to do anymore, we have still made huge, real progress, okay? And they are equipped to then be able to do that same thing with stuff continuing going on. But don't set things aside in keep boxes or in piles saying, you're going to do this later after I leave. Okay, don't waste time doing that now. Go ahead. It's not a waste of time to take it there now. That is the key to the no mess decluttering process. All right, I hope this was helpful. I would love to hear about what y'all have done helping other people in your life. If you're interested in hiring a decluttering coach who can guide you through my process, many of them go into people's homes and most of them also work virtually. You can just go to declutteringcoaches.com and see if there's one in your area or find one who you can work with virtually. Okay, I will talk to y'all next week. Bye.